Hell, my mortgage business sucks. Welcome to our third episode, guys. In this episode, we're going to be speaking about referrals, how to get more realtor referrals. I mean, turning this into a machine, right? Like, you guys ever experience that? Like, bring, bring, I have a client, right? Increasing your
Yeah.
realtor referrals, increasing your incoming leads while eliminating all the stress, all the pressure of where is my next dealing from, all of that type of frustration. I'm super excited. But before we get into it, let me do a nice intro to our two powerhouses here. Dan Ellis, 25 years in the business, $1 billion producer, right? You've hired, trained, and coached hundreds of LOs. You've been a production management guru forever. You're definitely a cross between Wendy from Billions, Dr. Phil, and Jesus, right? Whether you're head of production, area manager, or a loan officer before you burn down your operations and start over again, you want to reach out to Dan first. What's up, Dan? How are you, buddy?
Great to be here, Andrew. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So, Doug Cataray, I mean, what can I say? 30 years in the sales and origination space, top producer, broker owner. You've run successful teams, tens and thousands of hours of coaching LOs, realtors, even myself over the past 10 years. If you're a producer or run a team and feel like you aren't maximizing your efforts, you'll want to listen to what Doug, the ROI guy, has to say. What's up, ROI
Yeah.
guy?
What's up, guys? Thanks for letting me be here, man. It's a pleasure to hang out with you, man. Feeling better than I deserve.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, today we're literally going to talk about the most exciting thing, how to make this thing, right? This phone to blow it up, tons of incoming leads, but it just reminds me of, and especially in my growth in the business, it reminds me of a quick story. So, you guys, I mean, I don't know, you guys, how many times have you guys been to bachelor parties? I've probably been to 10, 15 in Vegas. You guys ever go to Vegas for a bachelor party?
No, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, man. Mm-mm.
Yeah, so I actually went once, and we did it for once. We did it in a way where I thought it made more sense, which was instead of going there and doing the fist pump and all the party stuff, we're like, all right, let's be mature adults. Let's do crazy ATVs in the middle of the desert, which was super unsafe, let alone my credit card wasn't one down for the security deposit, which we don't want to talk about. And let's go in the middle, 2 hours like north from Vegas, from the strip. Let's go in the middle of the desert and let's shoot machine guns out of a helicopter.
Oh,
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 So
that would be fun.
it was super cool. But I remember I'm going into the helicopter. They said you're not supposed to have drinks. Me and my buddies had a few pops before we got on the helicopter. And as I'm going up, all of a sudden I'm like, my phone rings. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's this realtor that I've been waiting so long to get a referral from. So I answer, I'm like, yo, because I mean, at that point, I've been peppering him, right? I'm like a stalker ex-girlfriend with the guy. I'm hitting him up on every social media platform. I'm DMing, I'm MySpacing, I'm sending letters in the mail, I'm mowing his lawn. I mean, I'm really going for the gusto. So he calls, and I'm like, what's up, dude? And he's like, hey, you wanted an opportunity? You wanted to crack the apple? Here we go. I have a client. They're using another company, another bank. The loan's going sideways. I want you to take over. So, number one, he was impressed because in the back, he's like hearing, he's like, bro, where are you? I was like, I'm at a bachelor party, dude. I'm literally about to shoot a machine gun into a mountain. But I answered the phone. I got that first crack at the apple, and I remember it was a super difficult deal. The guy was. There's a lot of moving parts, nonetheless. It was definitely a best fit for my platform. For a broker company platform. I was able to save the day. Obviously, it's a killer story. Being able to do something like that, but it just proved the point that yes, I answer the phone and that's half the battle sometimes I feel like, but that one relationship that I could tell you specifically by answering the phone after a couple pops on that helicopter about to unload what I think we're shooting a saw into, it's called a machine gun that's called a saw into the mountain. Obviously, getting my wits about me, saving the day for that client, which is amazing, getting someone into a home with a great interest rate, but obviously they thought for the previous month that it wasn't going to work out for them. We're able to save the day. That one specific transaction with that one agent really catapulted my business. Number one, I mean, it was great for brand, right? On social media, when people are like, hey, shout out to Andrew Russell for saving the day. It gives you a bit of, we call it street cred. It's like the new age street cred. that relationship for that agent obviously generated more incoming business for myself. And then on the go forward, that agent started a big team. It got me more opportunities within that market center for that office. So that one specific, I'll never forget that one specific instance of answering the phone and doing the thing after relentless, reaching out to this guy asking for business. It really brought my business to the next level. But let me take a step back. Why do you think, guys, just high level, why do most loan officers, why do they struggle so much to build relationships and get that first crack at the apple?
So if you want me to, I'll jump into that one and have an answer. So I think a lot of it starts with their intent. I think a lot of LOs have a hard time defining their value clearly when they call a realtor. I think in a lot of ways, loan officers struggle with this identity of being a valuable resource for these agent partners. And so there's a variety of different reasons why they struggle building the relationship, but I think it starts with they don't really see themselves being worthy enough. And on the other side of it, I don't think that they believe that they follow up consistently enough to really create that opportunity.
Why do you think they don't feel like they're worthy enough?
Man, I think a lot of times LOs have a hard time defining what a successful transaction looks like and how it benefits the real estate agent. I won't go into too much detail about it because that's on a separate podcast that we'll get into. But man, I just feel like a lot of us define successful transactions just by closing on time, having good communication, and getting good reviews and making the clients happy. And I love those answers, but there's an ascension that gets beyond that and has to do with how we create experiences that get our clients to refer us.
Are you talking about the care model?
Yeah, it's the care model. Sure, if you guys want to let the cat out of the bag, the care model. It's about creating.
Listen, guys, we're not trying to give you all the goodies right now, but check out right now. I don't know if you're driving, whatever you're doing. HMMB.sucks. HMMB.sucks. Hit the website. It's a resource, and you can get entry into our free community. Doug speaks all the time, not to let the cat out of the bag, like he said, all the time about his care model, how he can, if you're closing 4 transactions, literally plug into the care model, and instantly that 4 turns into 5. It's actually an amazing thing, but make sure you check out hmmb.sucks and hop into our community, Help My Mortgage Business Sucks. But let me ask you, Dan, what do you think the mindset is for these top LOs? Doug references like they don't think they're necessarily worthy, but why do the top high-level gangster LOs, when they're prospecting new agents, what's their mindset and how's that differ from the average?
I'd say the top loan officers, they have a game plan, right? So, I've worked with too many to count, but when it comes to top performers, they have a game plan, meaning it's not just the activity that they're about to do, it's how that activity fits into what they want and what they want to deliver. So I guess you could put it in the framework of top producers understand their value. So, I think when it comes to what the average loan officer thinks is they're thinking, I don't have any value. How's my value different from the other loan officer? They're thinking of other people, and that's where they get stuck, right? But the top producers are saying, hey, I've got all sorts of resources. I've got all sorts of tools, and I've got myself. I'm resourceful. If I don't have the answers, I'm going to go find the answers. And so when they have a game plan, they don't really take anything personal because they're just inviting people in to have a conversation, in to have a meeting, share ideas. And so I think that the top producers are just longer term thinkers, and they understand that not everybody's having a good day, and they'll circle back around if they've got a good offer.
Just reminds me too of the famous line by Mike Tyson. You guys know it? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And, I know UFC, that was big too, but it just reminds me like, I've coached up and had some of these calls and had a great plan. And then you get hit with the left from the realtor and you're just like, you have to pivot. I think at that moment, that state of flux too in a conversation, some of these loan officers that have that great mindset, they're just that confident that they can kind of take that and run with it. But it happens all the time. You can coach up a loan officer, give them the best ideas, but when that realtor comes with that one thing, you have to be, you may not get that opportunity, that agent again to speak with them. So you have to, kind of shake and move at that point. But do you guys think, to the point of reaching out to realtors, that LOs, when they're trying to build their book of business, mortgage loan originators, should they attack right? There's whales, there's squirrels, there's, all sorts of analogies, but the whales are, I think right now in this market, a whale is someone doing 10, 12 transactions with the loan officer. So if that loan officer can account for probably 4 to 6 quality referrals a month, which will then translate into probably a closing a month, which is a whale. Do you think LO should start attacking whales first? Because probably the fastest way for them to get business. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you should be calling all of them, right? Everybody has a life cycle in their business and in their life. And when we're talking about making first contact with people, there's always going to be a life cycle in that specific relationship. And so I would say historically, whales probably take a little bit longer. They're more seasoned, they've got more resources, and they have choices to make, and they know it, right? But if you're going to plant a seed, everybody, no matter what they're producing now, if you want to produce, work with top producers, middle of the road producers, and let's call them, folks that are just getting started in the business, you've got to start the relationship at some point. And so they're all going to season according to what your follow-up is, your plan, how well you're going to get together. But I think you got to make that first connection with all of them.
You know what I like about whales that I think a lot of people push up against is whales actually know what the gaps in their business are. Whales have tried, they've performed, they've figured out what works, what doesn't work, and they're always looking for opportunities to solve problems. What I think about the lower performing referral partners is most of them don't understand the gaps in their business. So as a lender, if you know what your superpowers, if you know your value, if you understand what you are there to solve for, and you actually understand the needs of these agents, it actually makes the conversations, I think, way better. I would much rather have a conversation with a whale that I don't do business with, but create a relationship with, because over time I can work myself into that. And those conversations, I think, are just easier with people that have ascended to where top performing lenders are at.
Well, Doug, I want to give the audience some takeaways right now on literally what they could do, what they could plug into their business besides checking out our community, specific strategies. So what is one specific strategy right now? You have an LO who's listening, they're hyped up with what you're saying, so they could reach out and book a meeting with that agent. What's the strategy just to get that meeting?
Just to get I would start by understanding selling the solution is, in my mind, a race to the bottom. Everybody's talking about, I do this, I do that, we do this, we do that kind of thing. I understand that approach, but I feel like the lenders that are really out there making a difference are out there promoting and selling the problem, understanding what the problems in the real estate market is, and really talking to that point.
What do you think the problems are right now?
What the biggest problem right now for realtors is that most of them, I feel like, have, and this is the interesting thing, I've really dug into this a little bit. There's 4 distinct buckets that I think most realtors have this problem in, that we as lenders can really, really engage in. They don't have a process around these 4 areas. And if you're listening, these are the ones that I would tell you to pay attention to. They don't have a process for prospecting, tracking, asking, and following up. And by process, I mean they have something that can actually hand to somebody on their team and go, can you do this? And can you demonstrate it being done over and over and over again? And if you ask any realtor that you're courting or trying to have a conversation with or engaged with, most of them have one, if not all, of those problems. And as lenders, if you're going to be valuable, you got to be prepared to know how to solve them. So sell the problem, not the solution. Everybody's talking about the solution. Be different. Go after a different conversation and sell the problem. That way you make it more about them, and that's where you create value.
That's amazing, but we all know the money is in the follow-up. As an example, I once had a loan officer. I've been in a bunch of companies before. I opened my own company in 2017, and he said, "Yo, Andrew, bro." Now he didn't have a Long Island accent like that. I just made it a little bit more dramatic. I apologize, guys. So he's like, "Hey, Andrew, I seen you on social with, we'll call her Beth, and I met with Beth once. We had a great conversation. Our kids go to the same camp. Kumbaya." And I just don't understand. We had a great conversation, we get some stuff going, and nothing ever happened. And I see you got business first. So I'm just asking, how did you do that? In my head, I was like, I bet, and I'm not going to put the guy in the spot when I was speaking to him. What did you do after the meeting? Did you just sit back and then it was the weekend and then next week came and then you were busy? So Dan, is there a follow-up strategy, something that the audience can take away that you think, because again, to me, the money's in the follow-up, but you have to have a systemized plan. So what type of follow-up strategies do you like?
Right. So the first step, call them, get the meeting, right? Second step, have the meeting. Third step, I suppose, after that is follow up from the meeting. So if you're going to look at them in that order, I would say the most important place to reference for this is to go back to the meeting, right? So you can talk about whatever you want within the meeting. You can ask them as many questions as you want to ask them in the meeting. You can go in any direction that you want to go with it. And so you choose in that meeting what the follow-up sequence is going to look like after the meeting, right? So if I ask you, Andrew, how did you get started in the business? That's, a question that people like to get started with because everybody likes to tell their origin story, right? So, gosh, you've been in the business for 17 years. What's the greatest challenge that you faced? What did you learn from it? What did you start doing? What did you stop doing? Do you think that it was a catalyst for your success, right? And so you can take their history all the way up to the point that you're talking to them. And now you could say, wow, that's a really interesting story. I could see why you have all that success. Hey, Andrew, here we are. It's August, right? Everybody goes into January. They're super excited about where they're going to go for the year. And they put out a goal and they say, this is what my plan is going to be. Tell me about that. How's that working for you so far this year? Where your numbers at? Are you on pace to hit them? If not, what's gotten in the way? What's worked for you? And essentially, you're now consolidating, gathering all the information that you need to find out what are the gaps in their business, what do they care about, where are they going, what gets in the way. And so if you're somebody that really likes to bring value, then you gather that information and you strategically call them every week after that. And you reference all the things that they have questions about, all the gaps that are in their business. And you look to carry on the conversation that you've already started. That's all follow-up is to me. And when people start thinking that way, they slow down. They start engaging people in conversation. They realize they don't have to have all the answers. They don't have to present right there. And so when they're doing follow-up, it's just a natural follow-up. Hey, Andrew, based on our conversation last week, you were mentioning this specifically. Hey, I did some research for you. You got a second? Like, dude, if I can come in there and follow up on that meeting, every time that I call you, Andrew, you're going to be engaged. You're like, what do you got, Dan? And that's it. So understand that, you start the relationship and it's going to go ongoing from the actual meeting that you have. Just continue the conversation like they were a friend. Like, dude, you have a conversation with a friend and say, man, I'm all out of ideas. No, dude,
you got to talk about? What do you got to talk about? Nothing. All right, sweet.
Yeah, I mean, they're like at the end of the day, you're saying, hey, you know what? There was something that you mentioned last time that it was really funny to me, right? And so you just enter the conversation there and you just continue the one that you had, right? So that's, when it comes to the big idea, when it comes to the plan, that's what I would do. I would say how often? You got to do it at least weekly, right? You've got to check in with people on a weekly basis and add value. You don't have to wait the week, right? If something comes off the top of your head, send them a text. I know people are like, oh my gosh, you're sending them a personal text. It's like, dude, you don't need to be a robot. Like if this was a good relationship and you had good follow-up, just like when we started getting to know each other, Andrew, and also you, Doug, like once you start the relationship, we're in the technical digital age. And so what do? We send text. And when you hit it off, you're texting all the time with people. So I would say try to take the business out of it and, try to have a little bit of fun and realize that the other people, that you're talking to, they just want to enjoy the other people that they're bringing into their life. They don't need another person that's talking shop all the time.
That makes total sense. But guys, let's slow down right now and let's talk about our sponsor. I mean, coming in at 6'3", 200. No, our sponsor, the Broker Accelerator Program by RCG Mortgage, right? So the backstory of the Broker Accelerator is the three of us have come together. Dan is Vice President of RCG Mortgage of Strategy, Doug, Vice President RCG of Sales. I have definitely seen a huge gap in the marketplace, especially in the tri-state area, let alone New York, for how we've talked about it before, turning a solopreneur loan officer, getting them out of that headspace, taking a step back, and plugging them into a system that helps them become CEO of their business, which helps them with growth, it helps them with freedom. But there are so many moving parts. There's so much, based on my journey of opening a company to being a top mortgage broker originator across the country, let alone #1 in the state. There's so much that goes into it, whether it's geeking out on tech or building a brand on social. Because remember, guys, 75%, 3 out of 4 of every consumer that comes in front of you will stalk you out on social. So if you're not there, are you really a thing? All that stuff inclusive of what systems you're using for follow-up strategies that Dan touched upon, building a team, right? Getting all the referrals, and you can't do it all yourself. There's so much that goes into it. So it's exciting. We came together, we put together the Broker Accelerator Program, which is taking loan officers, plugging them into our systems, And then, within 90 days, the goal is to double business just by inheriting some of these systems. And after a year, giving them we call it a residual income millionaire opportunity, because if you could put your business on autopilot, have your team, build your brand, I mean, it's exciting. So Dan, touch upon this Broker Accelerated program and why it's exciting for you.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So, I've had this thesis. I was a former teacher. Everything that we did was plan, 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 do, plan, 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 do, assess, plan, plan, do. Came into the mortgage business. Like there just wasn't a lot of structure, right? And so, you start observing as you ascend through the business, and you realize as you go from, top producer or branch manager, and you have some LOs and you become a non-producer, that there really isn't a plan for developing loan officers, right? And so I've had this idea, what if we brought in a coach, right? That's the old non-producer model, somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in every loan, right? In every situation, and they can actually focus on the loan officer, where they're at, what they need, give them all the resources, give them the encouragement. And I'm like, nobody's doing it. And so there's a point, I guess, I just turned 50 like 2 weeks ago, and you go, I got to do something with this, right? I've got to do something with this. If the gap hasn't been filled, let's fill the gap. So, coming into your organization where you're a top producer, you're going through that transition where you finally say to yourself too, like, I want to give back to the community. I've been able to do all this for myself. And, our conversation sort of sparked Doug's conversation, kind of got this idea like, dude, we could go all in and just pour everything that we know into every loan officer that wants to grow and wants to do something more than they've already done. And so that's what's super exciting for me.
Thank you for the share, man. And amazing to have you aboard. So, Doug, I'm a loan officer. I'm listening. I'm doing my couple loans a month. 1 month I did 7. The next month, 1 or 2 or 0. I'm trying to put this all together. What are some of the things that you, Doug, look for in a loan officer to make them the right fit for this program?
Yeah, there's a lot of qualities that we have that have to be brought out in this space. But I don't know about you guys, but I never went to college dreaming about being a lender. So I feel like we all kind of end up in the lending space, not by accident. We're here it's kind of like it's like a catch-all of everybody that doesn't fit in the box of all the other places in the world where you can make money. And so I feel like there's a lot of training that's lacking in actually running a mortgage business. And so we get into this space having a job, and it's kind of fun and we make some good money, but we don't really have that consistency. And so when you create this idea that you're in it for the long haul, like you don't see yourself doing anything else, you kind of ascend to this position of having a career, right? You're going to stay here, you're going to make money, you're going to do the best at it, and build a life around it. I feel like it starts with having that belief that you're all in. I think if you're a loan officer and you don't want to do anything else, maybe you aren't skilled to do anything else, and recognize that this business, for as hard as it is, there's a great amount of money to be made and a lot of freedom to be had. And if you can harness both of those, you can basically create a business inside of this industry that produces residual income for you and can take you into the 7-figure range. I've seen it over and over and over again. It's not easy. It's not for everybody, but I think it starts with going from this belief that you just have a job, meaning you're not quite sure. You're kind of waiting, maybe the rates, maybe not. Maybe you lose some deals, maybe you lose a couple relationships, and you're looking at wanted ads. Maybe you're thinking about changing the industry. Man, I can't help. The Broker Accelerator cannot help those people that have a job mindset. But if you believe that this is a career that you're going to win in, and you're committed to investing yourself into it to be the best version of yourself, man, from there, all things are possible. And everybody has their own individual style, but everyone has the same challenges. We're all wrestling with the same identity. And that's what we've gained over the decade plus years of doing this. That the Broker Accelerator, the whole Broker Accelerator concept is, it's taken me 30 years to get to the place where I feel like I finally have a great handle on it. And all we're saying is, what if we could shorten that time frame and help you grow and emerge into this version of yourself faster? And because there's a plan that's been proven. Andrew, you're a case in point. That's why we're here. What if that was possible? What if you had that plan in front of you and you had that coach and that support around you and that leadership that gave you that ability and belief in yourself? On the other side of it, what do you want? Like, that's the first thing I would look for. Do you want to grow a business, or do you just want to have a job in the lending space?
Well, thank you so much for that, Doug. So, guys, listeners, loan officers, if you want a private one-on-one conversation, text broker to 833-346-0663. That's 833-346-0663. Text broker for a consultation with the three of us. If you want to know what you have from an opportunity perspective, plug me into my exact systems, things for a decade I've worked on, and I've OCD'd over them. I've spent probably over $1 million of my own money figuring out the right coaches, the right influencer coaches, the right brand development, the right tech tools, the right team building, especially hyper-focus in this market. If you want a one-on-one conversation with us, text broker to 833-346-0663. We're definitely open to conversations to show my secret sauce, how I did it, and what that could do to change your life and give you more freedom. So we had some audience engagement in our first couple, podcasts that we did. So one of the questions Anello actually asked was, how do you, just a generic, how do you build value to realtors? And it is a good point. Doug touched upon the problem, not necessarily the solution. So to me, when I opened my mortgage company, I realized everybody's on social media. Everyone is just, if you guys have seen the numbers, it's just the average person spends how many hours on their smartphone? I mean, you wake up, right? The average person wakes up, takes a breath, probably goes on their smartphone, logs into Facebook. No one wants to admit it, but it's just, this is kind of the society that we're in. So to me, how I build value to realtors is, and this started right away, I opened in 17, right away, my value prop was digital. So to me, it's, hey, let's talk about digital marketing, Mr. and Mrs. Agent. How would you rate yourself on social media and digital? Are you a 1? Are you a grandmother who has grandkids? You go and look at their pics. You don't even have a profile pic on Facebook. That would be a 1. A 10, you're Ryan Serhant. I mean, the guy's the guy. Where do you fall? And then to me, typically agents like, well, I'm a 3 or a 4 or I'm a 7. And I'm like, cool. We have strategies and tactics that can help grow and scale your business on social and digital. Would you be interested if we could talk further and what my team can do to help you grow in that space? Now, if you talk to 10 realtors, 10 out of 10 will be interested, in my opinion, on what the partnership, what you can do to help them grow in that space. Because everybody, to me, we're living in a society. How many followers do you have? It's almost like, hey, instead of like, hey, Doug, where are you from? What's your favorite football team? And, what do you like to do on a Saturday night? It's like, so Doug, talk about Instagram. Like, how many followers you got, bro? Like that literally matters.
Not enough.
Right? That's something where I would give that LO that asked to build value to realtors. It's, meet them where they are, which is everyone wants to be an influencer, whatever that even means. I don't know. I just want to be a great dad and crush it with these guys in mortgage. But that's something that I would always bring up. And if you don't know how, obviously you could reach out to us. We're kind of an open book. Number one, hop in hmmb.sucks, our community. I'm going to personally give strategies on how to build realtor partners and offer a digital perspective. But of course, you can always text to 833-346-0663. Text the word broker. We can kind of pop off to a one-on-one and talk about strategies. I would love to talk to any LO and what you can do to build value, bring value to agents, especially on the digital side. But Doug, I get this one also all the time, right? So someone asked last week, the whole in-house lender thing, like, hey, Andrew, I would love to, the top producers are in this market center. I know the team lead or whomever, but you walk in and XYZ Lending's there. There's an in-house lender. So what would you tell them, Doug? Because to me, there's a huge opportunity because nobody's married to anybody. But what would you tell that loan officer? Is it worth their time? And how could they saturate that type of situation?
Yeah. So first off, an in-house lender to me is always called an outhouse lender. I never really felt like the in-house lenders are actually that good. Because the ones that they put in there usually have to take a lower compensation. So I'm glad that those offices have an in-house lender. I see that as a massive opportunity for me to show up and bring value. And if you look at the realtor reports and their data, you'll find that a lot of the lenders a lot of the in-house lenders don't get most of the business from these realtors because they don't do any follow-up. They don't do any push through. They don't do any value add. Man, I'll tell you, if there's an in-house lender, I'm actually showing up and I'm creating conversations around a topic that I'm really good at. Maybe my company has a great reverse program. Maybe my company has some great non-QMs. I'm showing up talking about one specific strategy that can help influence these realtors with their struggle loans or their struggle deals, struggle bunnies. And I always love the idea of being a second opinion or second option lender. I don't need to be the first, but I tell you what, if I can show up and solve the problem for your weak and beat up loans that you can't get closed, or your transactions that can't get closed, run them across my desk, I'm freaking awesome. 30 years of experience, I will find a solution for any of them that have a solution. And so I always like being that second option or second opinion lender. And I feel like that, along with picking a specific strategy, whether it's like non-QM right now, that's a hot button, man, I'm showing up knocking on doors, and I'm just out there trying to create influence with people, showing up and being like, just because you have an in-house lender doesn't mean they're the ones that are going to be able to service everything you got. Let me win on the relationship.
Because you know what happens, Doug, right? You get that opportunity, you could present on non-QM, to your point, HELOCs, reverse mortgages. Eventually, you're going to build relationships with the agents in that office. You know what happens after that? You say, hey, you know, I also do the conventional and the FHA.
Right.
And ironically, I'm really good at it.
When you show up as a resource, people start to remember that. When you show up trying to bring value, people will remember you, especially if you follow up. We talked about it earlier. Fortune's in the follow-up. All you got to do is show up consistently, because the in-house lenders kind of take it for granted that they have access to all these people. The ones that have to work for it tend to be a little bit hungrier. And I'll be honest with you, you put me up against an in-house lender 9 out of 10 times, we'll smoke them, just because we have a different passion and a different reason for being there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. But Dan, this leads the final audience, question for the moment. Hey, Andrew. So I reached out to this top producer. I did everything you guys said, right? I got the list of agents who are producing. I called them. I listened to the strategies to get that meeting. I did the follow-up, like you said, Dan, but now they're like, all right, cool. Let's get into bed together. I do co-marketing. I'm with Zillow. I'm thinking of increasing my budget. Are you comfortable splitting it? And of course, let's, preemptively say, Dan, they've never done a deal with that loan officer, let alone refer them. So it's like leading into the relationship with the loan officer. The realtor says, hey, let's do Zillow. Let's do co-marketing. Let's start that way. Do you think, Dan, is that the right way to start with an agent? Do you think it makes more sense to get a feel and get some referrals? Or is it just, you don't know, you make a one-off, decision? Is that agent such a big producer? It might be worth the risk. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'd say that the most consistent answer, because it's not going to be the same for everybody, right? But I would say the most consistent answer that I would give is slow down, right? So if I was to sit down with you for an hour and we're going to map out your business, I'm going to have you map out your business. What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? What are the resources you have? What are the tools you have? Where do you have gaps in your business, right? So when I'm building a new relationship with a brand new, let's call them a referral partner or agent or whomever else, the reality is I'm going to ask them to have that conversation first, right? So if they say, hey, listen, I got Zillow leads right now, are you willing to, go in and pay for Zillow leads for me? I'd say, hey, Andrew, I'm open to that. I'm open to having a conversation about that. I would like to kind of sit down and map out where that would fit in your plan, where that would fit in my plan, and how we could benefit. I think that, it's okay to have that conversation. It might be a little bit early. Is that okay with you if we fit that into our conversation? But just make sure that we're on the same page and it makes sense for both of us first. And that's where I would start. So it can be a good relationship builder, your business, if it's a good fit for them, if they've got a history of working those leads, if your team has a history of working those leads, and you can say, I've converted and there's an ROI, even if you're just breaking even. Sometimes for the relationship alone, it's worth breaking even. But again, it's still got to fit in your plan. If it's just you begging for business and saying, I will pay for business, I would say that's a bad strategy.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you so much for that. So guys, thank you so much for participating in this podcast. As you guys saw, listeners out there, what we went over, it's the best stuff in the world, right? I'm sucking right now. I'm not getting enough leads. We gave you tips and strategies to grow your realtor partners, how to make the meeting, what to do with the meeting, how to do the follow-ups, and eliminate all that frustration, all that stress of where's my next deal coming from. I mean, the takeaways, Doug gave us gold, how to hit the problem with the agent, sell the problem, not necessarily the solution, which is a cool vantage point. I love that. And also an in-house lender solution, how to get in there, saturate market centers, especially in New York, where there is an in-house lender. To me, it's an untapped resource, and he gave us gold. And of course, Dan gave us specific follow-up strategies on how to build relationships and how to really saturate and monetize those, which is it's great getting the meeting, right, guys? But it's how do you do that follow-up? What's the strategy? He gave us some great stuff along with the co-marketing strategy, because all loan officers will call agents. That agent will bring up the dirty words. Hey, you want to do some co-marketing together? So how to not get caught up where it's all about the spend. It does have to be about the relationship as well. So make sure, guys, you follow us in our communities. You join the free community. You hit our website, hmmb.sucks, hmmb.sucks. Our Help My Mortgage Business Sucks community is a free community where there's tons of information daily. Doug and Dan are living in there. It's such a great resource for the LO community, and we're excited to give back and help all grow and scale their business. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Each week, we're going to be spitting fire. I think the kids say that, right, guys? Giving you some great stuff. So share with your friends. We're an open community for this podcast. Share with other loan officers. It's all good. But guys, next week, you've given the best strategies on how to grow your business, how to turn this phone, right, this crazy iPhone that I just got, into a lead machine. Now, what's the next thing that happens? Hello? Hey, Andrew, it's Dan Ellis. Hey, what's up, Dan? So what ended up happening with that John Smith referral I gave you last week? Right? Because that's happened to everybody. I hate to break it to you, right? Once this thing starts popping,
dropping the ball.
Yeah, like, as a solopreneur, which most are, what happens then? And then you're just like, that's a great question, Dan. Let me look into it. Like, that's, that's not a good answer, right? So we're going to give you tips and strategies, guys. And now you're getting the business, what to do to, and because Doug, you work with loan officers, spent so much time building the business, then it came and they kind of fell flat, right? So how can we ensure, guys, we're giving you great strategies on how to build it, but then not fall flat to deliver that 5-star experience. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. And until next time, we'll see you then.